Alright, I thought I'd take a minute here before the Oil Tips channel gets a little too long in the tooth that it gets deleted to go over how I do my regular resource rating. Uh, this is something I've been doing since I just got to Atomic and got my barracks upgraded. I felt personally that needing 6 tanks on the roster was kind of critical, so I waited until I was at least able to do that before I started with the full roster heavy tank rating. And at that point, I still had global planes and global heavy tanks. I was using Merc 4s at the time, and there was a little bit of a learning curve at the time, but once I figured out what I was able to handle without losing anything, I was pretty much able to raid nonstop and get as many resources as I needed with only making a mistake and losing a tank or a plane or something when I tried to basically overachieve and hit above my weight class. So as far as university skills go, uh, I do now have a few levels into Leo's heavy tank upgrades, and I also have the fighter damage all the way maxed in Amelia, as well as the fighter hit points. And those two things really help with survivability of your planes when you're using them to take out anti-tank guns as you're moving through somebody's base. Additionally, I do have a couple of artifacts down here in the weapons category for boosting fighter damage and boosting fighter hit points and damage. This one I actually re-rolled, and it popped up with that fighter damage line. The first time I re-rolled something, I was super happy about that. Will never happen again. I re-rolled other artifacts multiple times to try to get things that I wanted, and I just keep wasting crowns. So it is pretty much a lottery as far as that goes. You get whatever you get, and most of it is rubbish. So that's pretty much the most of what I have. I will show you my resource artifacts here real quick. I'm trying to re-roll this one to get another resource looted line, but I have yet to be successful. This one's my pride and joy. It's obviously a great bonus for oil and all resources and everything. Eventually I will try to re-roll the 5th level of that, but seeing as I don't have enough resources to upgrade it to the 5th level, I really haven't been in a hurry to do that. Alright, so this is pretty much what I do when I'm raiding. I touched on what the army was I had before. It's 6 heavy tanks. Usually I'll carry a bazooka, and I do the 7 infantrymen just because that makes it easier to drop medals when I decide I'm too high in medals and I need to get rid of a bunch. You can actually, without a training blessing, have enough guys there to just keep dropping medals over and over and over again as long as you want, and retrain when you come back, and it'll keep you stocked. Tactics. The most important thing I have for tactics for raiding is the first aid. These things really do help out if you notice a tank that's getting in trouble. And if you drop one of these in the right place, you can refresh most of your tank's hit points while it goes about its business blowing up stuff in the base. So I used a couple of items to get those back. I have a few left. But on to looking for some people to attack and kind of go through my thoughts of what I'm looking into when I'm searching for bases. One thing is, since I got to Cold War, I'm getting a lot of high-level bases when I'm searching in multiplayer, and it's not quite as easy to find great bases to attack as it was when I was in Atomic. I still do find them, but it takes a little bit more searching to find them than it used to. As you can see, I've already gone through several. Alright, this one looks pretty good. Not the most amount of oil, but with the loot bonus, 1700 isn't bad. Plus there's a good amount of food and gold there. As far as these big box bases are concerned, there really isn't a whole lot of strategy that's needed. But for the most part, I'm just, having looked at the base here real quick, I'm going to put all my tanks down here by the missile silo to take that out fairly quickly. And what I do with my fighters is, as my tanks progress through the base, I will use them to trim out all the cannons, anti-tank towers that are around. If somebody's has a better base, it is advisable to wait for your attack line to get closer to the tower before you try to use the planes to take it out, because then they're swimming through less defenses because you've already cleared some behind what you're trying to strike. The inverse of that is if you let your attack line get too close, you run the risk of one of your tanks blowing up an anti-tank gun that you targeted, and then your planes keep flying around looking for new targets while they pretty much get shredded by defenses. So you really do want to avoid that too. But as you can see, things are progressing slowly but surely. The tanks have spread out on their own, and I'm pretty much just going to let them go. For a base like this, I really don't need to throw in a rally or anything to speed things along. It's just going to take care of itself. So when they're starting to get a little bit closer here, I'll go ahead and take out the last 3 cannon towers here. And just kind of wait until everything's cleaned up here before I'm done. But you really do want to look for, especially when you're just starting out, these big box bases that you don't have to go through a lot of layers to get what you need. It's really easy just to steamroll through a base like this. As far as a younger Atomic would go, you're probably looking for bases in the 140s and 150s to do this with. Since I have the higher technology levels, I'm able to reach a little bit higher into the level count. So, since I didn't lose anything, I can go right back to attacking. And another 256 that I'm not going to bother with. We'll find one eventually. Here's a 196. Normally, if I had my War Academy and I wanted to burn a bunch of heal tactics to get through this, I could take this base. It has a decent amount of oil, but I'm just going to skip it for now. There's another one that's a possibility. It's a little bit light on the resources, so I'm just, for the sake. Alright, now that I've got my internet sorted out again, I'm just coming back to do a couple more attacks here so that there's a little bit more of a general idea what I'm thinking about when I'm looking for bases to attack. If I can figure out how to stitch this video to the next one, I will do it for convenience. Otherwise, I'll just post it in 2 parts here. That base is obviously too high. $160, not a whole lot of resources, but for the sake of argument, some is better than none. And this will definitely be a base that I won't have any trouble getting through. Pretty quick. At this point, now that I've taken out the first couple of cannon towers, I'm just going to let my tanks do their thing here for a while as they move in a line through the base. That time I decided to deploy along this wall here and put the tanks in groups of 2 just because that makes spreading them out and then getting them through the wall just a little bit easier. Typically, having them spread out in a line like this is the way to go, because if they're all in a group, you're kind of wasting time and energy because they basically spend the whole attack fighting over who gets to shoot at the building first. So now that I've moved through most of the base, I'm going to go ahead and take out the rest of the cannon towers here. And my tanks should be able to wrap up everything here relatively shortly. Another thing you can do if your planes are not quite as strong as mine, and this is what I do on the other account because the planes on that one are kind of neglected, you can rally on those cannon towers that are out in open field and usually destroy them with only taking a shot or 2, and it saves a little bit of wear and tear and possibly having to rebuild a plane, which is usually good because if you have your War Academy up, you can always refresh that tank with a first aid and move on while your tactics are regenerating. This one's really pretty good. It's a little bit higher than I usually attack, but since the owner has the big box strategy, it's going to be pretty easy to defeat. So again, I'll just do 3 groups of 2. Get that cannon tower, that one, and that one in my first wave. I always do like to try to deploy all the planes in the first wave so that they are all out. What the game does with your planes after they're all deployed the first time is it will then deploy them in order of health the second time around. So the ones with the most health will be the ones that get deployed first when you tap your fingers. So you can kind of plan around that and say, like, this one's in the further towards the middle of the base, I want my higher HP planes to take that one out in case they decided to run over all those towers and everything to come and get them. These last couple of anti-tank guns here, I can wait a few more seconds before I try to take them out. This heavy tank up in the top here will take out a couple more of those defenses and keep my planes from getting shot at so much. I do like to try to conserve their HP as much as possible, just because you never know where there's a SAM. And these atomic ones with the yellow stripes on the bottom, it still takes me 2.5 planes to destroy completely from the air. Everybody seems to be doing okay. There's no worry that I have right now that I'm going to lose any tanks. it is a good idea to try to keep an eye on these guys, because sometimes they'll run over a couple of landmines or something and get into trouble, and if you don't notice, then you'll wind up losing one and wondering where it went. That happens to me on occasion. So then I wind up waiting the 13 minutes or whatever it is for one to rebuild before I can attack again. But seeing as that only happens every once in a while, it gives me a little break to go and do something else. So that's pretty much it. I don't think I have anything else to add. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to ask me and chat, and I'll see if I can cover anything that I might have missed. So, take care.